America has hosted fascinating festivals that once lit up streets and united communities. Let's dive into these forgotten celebrations that have now faded into history. Number 1. Mischief Night. All right, next up, we've got a bit of a mischievous one. Mischief Night. This was the night before Halloween when kids and teens would take to the streets for a little playful chaos. We're talking toilet papering houses, soaping up windows, and playing pranks on neighbors. Mischief Night was huge in parts of the US, especially in the Northeast, throughout the 20th century. But as you can guess, not everyone was thrilled with the mischief. Over time, with concerns about vandalism and safety, Mischief Night started to fade away, especially by the late 20th century. These days, it's mostly disappeared or toned down, with more focus on Halloween celebrations instead. Number 2. May Day celebrations. Next on our list is May Day, a springtime celebration that used to be a big deal in many parts of the US. May 1st was marked by dancing around maypoles, crowning the May Queen, and lots of fun festivals celebrating the arrival of spring. It had this super wholesome vibe, with people gathering in parks and schools to welcome the warmer months. But over the years, May Day's popularity started to decline, especially as Labor Day in September took over as the main celebration for workers, and the spring rituals just kind of faded into history. Today, you'll still see May Day celebrated in some places, but it's nothing like it used to be in the early 20th century. Number 3. The Pinkster Festival. Coming in at number 3 is the Pinkster Festival, a unique celebration with roots dating back to the 17th century. Originating from Dutch settlers in New York, this festival was a joyous event held in late spring, celebrating the arrival of Pentecost. It featured a mix of music, dancing, and traditional foods, and it was a time for communities to come together and celebrate their heritage. As the years went by, the Pinkster Festival evolved into a larger cultural event, especially for the African American community, incorporating elements of African traditions. However, by the mid-20th century, the festival began to decline due to urbanization and changes in community dynamics. While it's not celebrated widely today, some historical reenactments and small local events pay tribute to this once vibrant festival. Number 4. Tolling the Bells on Washington's Birthday. Next up, we have Tolling the Bells on Washington's Birthday. This observance dates back to the early 19th century, celebrating the birthday of George Washington, the first president of the United States. Each February 22nd, communities would honor Washington by tolling church bells, a solemn yet celebratory way to recognize his contributions to the nation. The tradition was not just about ringing bells. It was also an opportunity for reflection on Washington's ideals and leadership. However, as the nation evolved, and with the establishment of President's Day in 1971, the specific observance of tolling the bells gradually faded away. Nowadays, while President's Day is still celebrated, the bells are mostly silent, with this tradition largely lost to history. Number 5. Flag Day, June 14th. Now let's talk about Flag Day. Celebrated on June 14th, Flag Day was originally established to honor the adoption of the U.S. flag in 1777. In its early days, various towns and states held their own celebrations, complete with parades, speeches, and of course, lots of flag waving. For many years, Flag Day was a significant event, fostering national pride and unity. However, as the years went by, interest in the day started to wane. It never became a federal holiday, and many Americans began to overlook its significance amidst other patriotic holidays like Independence Day and Memorial Day. While you might still see a few local events celebrating Flag Day, it's not quite the same as it used to be. Nowadays, it often gets overshadowed, leaving this once cherished holiday to fade into the background of America's rich tapestry of celebrations. Number 6. Battle of New Orleans Day. Next up, we have Battle of New Orleans Day, celebrated on January 8th. This holiday commemorated the decisive victory of American forces led by General Andrew Jackson over the British in 1815 during the War of 1812. This battle took place after the Treaty of Ghent had been signed, but word of the treaty hadn't reached the troops yet. In the 19th century, this day was a big deal in New Orleans, with parades, reenactments, and parties celebrating the victory and the pride of the city. It was a time when the people rallied together to remember their triumph and honor those who fought. However, as time passed and the War of 1812 faded from public consciousness, so did the celebration of Battle of New Orleans Day. By the mid-20th century, the festivities dwindled, and the day became less significant compared to other historical events. Today, while a few remnants of the celebration still exist, it has largely faded into history, remembered primarily by local historians and history enthusiasts. Number 7. Mardi Gras in various cities. All right, folks. Next on our list is Mardi Gras, celebrated in various cities across the U.S. While many of you may know about the famous Mardi Gras in New Orleans, there were once vibrant celebrations in cities like Mobile, Alabama, and St. Louis, Missouri. Historically, Mardi Gras, or Fat Tuesday, marked the last day before Lent, and it was a time for feasting and revelry. In Mobile, which is often considered the birthplace of Mardi Gras in the U.S., festivities included parades, balls, and elaborate costumes dating back to the early 1700s. St. Louis also had its unique take, featuring parades and street parties that filled the city with color and excitement. But as cities grew and cultures changed, the focus of Mardi Gras celebrations began to shift. New Orleans emerged as the ultimate Mardi Gras destination, drawing crowds and attention away from these other cities. Over time, Mobile and St. Louis's celebrations faded into the background, and while they still hold events today, they don't match the scale and grandeur of New Orleans. Number 8. Bicentennial Celebrations, 1976. Next up, let's take a look back at the bicentennial celebrations of 1976. This was a huge event marking the 200th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Across the country, Americans came together to celebrate their nation's history, pride, and achievements. From parades to fireworks, the bicentennial was a nationwide extravaganza. Major cities like Philadelphia, where the Declaration was signed, hosted grand celebrations, including reenactments, concerts, and even a massive tall ship parade on the Delaware River. Towns and communities across the U.S. held local events, planting trees, dedicating monuments, and creating time capsules to commemorate this historic milestone. But here's the kicker. Once the excitement of the bicentennial faded, so did many of the celebrations. While some events were recorded in history books, the national fervor for this kind of celebration didn't really carry on. After 1976, the focus shifted back to more localized or specific commemorations, and the grand scale of bicentennial celebrations was never quite replicated. So, while the bicentennial brought people together in a spectacular way, its grand celebrations have largely faded into history, serving as a reminder of the nation's rich past and the spirit of unity that can arise during special occasions. Number 9, Woollybear Festival. Now let's talk about a unique celebration that has faded into the background. The Woollybear Festival. Held annually in Vermilion, Ohio, this quirky festival celebrated the woolly bear caterpillar, known for its distinctive orange and black bands. The Woolly Bear Festival began in the 1970s and became a beloved local event featuring a parade, live music, and even a woolly bear race. That's right, a caterpillar race. People would enter their woolly bear caterpillars into a competition to see which one would make it to the finish line first. It was a fun and light-hearted way to celebrate the changing of the seasons and welcome fall. But as time went on, the festival struggled to attract the same level of excitement and participation it once enjoyed. Many factors contributed to its decline, including changing interests and the evolution of community events. While it still exists in a more limited capacity, it's nowhere near the grand affair it was in its heyday. So, while the Woolly Bear Festival might not be on everyone's radar today, it remains a charming reminder of the quirky, local traditions that once brought communities together in celebration of their unique heritage. Number 10, World's Fairs and Expositions. Next up, we're diving into the world of World's Fairs and Expositions. These monumental events showcased innovation, culture, and the spirit of progress, with some of the most famous being the 1939 New York World's Fair and the 1964 to 65 New York World's Fair. The 1939 fair, themed The World of Tomorrow, introduced groundbreaking technologies and designs. It was a place where visitors could experience the future, think futuristic architecture, the first televised broadcasts, and even a working model of a new world. People were captivated by the possibilities that technology held for their lives. Fast forward to the 1964 to 65 fair, which featured the iconic Unisphere and attractions from major companies like Ford and General Electric. It was a vibrant celebration of American ingenuity, offering rides, exhibits, and a chance to glimpse the future of transportation and space exploration. However, as the decades rolled on, the grandeur and scale of these fairs began to fade. While smaller expos and exhibitions still occur, they don't capture the same sense of wonder and community as their predecessors did. Economic factors, changing interests, and the rise of digital communication have transformed how we celebrate innovation and culture today. So, although we may no longer gather in droves for spectacular fairs that redefine the future, the legacy of these events lives on, reminding us of a time when the world came together to celebrate human achievement and imagination. Though these celebrations have faded, they left a lasting mark on American culture. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and join us for more nostalgic trips down memory lane.